The fire at Notre-Dame is out. Fingers crossed the structure is still sound. Now come some tough calls. The shock is still palpable. After all, the blaze struck much more than just a place of worship or a seat of religious power. For nearly 9 centuries, Notre-Dame has stood at the epicenter of Paris, capital of France. How much do you invest in a national treasure that's owned not by the church, but by the French state, as most cathedrals in this country are? It is France, a staunchly secular republic that must deal with it. And this goes to the heart of the question we've all been asking, what Notre-Dame means to us, both individually and collectively. It brings us to those tough choices. Who pays for the renovation? Taxpayers? Philanthropists? Fund drives? What kind of renovation? And can the project meet that 5-year deadline that's been set by France's president? We'll look at recent examples to see whether or not that's feasible and what's appropriate in honoring the spirit of Our Lady of Paris. Today in the France.24 debate, the challenges of rebuilding Notre-Dame. And joining us here is Elisabeth Auvillain, correspondent for the National Catholic Reporter. Thank you for being with us. We were together for that special edition 48 hours ago. Didier Rickner, editor of La Tribune de l'Art, arttribune.com.
latribune-de-l'art.com. There is no English version.
Okay.
You must Google it, to translate it with Google.
Okay, which means Art Tribune, of course, in French. Architect Marc Mimran was with us as well for that special edition. Thank you for being with us. And she's a former chair of the Socialist Party's youth wing. Roxane Lundy is a European elections candidate for the Génération Party. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The France.24 debate on Facebook and Twitter, hashtag F24debate. It's in plain sight of Notre-Dame, across the bridge on the right bank of the Seine, that they gathered earlier for a ceremony to pay tribute to the 500 firefighters who saved Notre-Dame. Yeah, the contractor on the site had shut down for the day at 5:50 p.m., 40 minutes before the first fire alarm bell went off. They insist that they followed procedure, including shutting down the electrical mains for that construction site.
We did indeed have a power supply on site, but the lift was set up 7 to 8 meters away from the cathedral, and the power supply was checked by a certified inspector. So we followed all of the safety standards and procedures.
Marc Mimran, one police source, saying if it's an accident, it's 90% probable that it is electrical, the reason.
I hope it's not a fire by itself. It's maybe electrical. Yes, we don't know actually what happened there, but we will see with the police report.
And the role of when you have this kind of renovation site,
yes.
This kind of they had brought in their own cables, their own electrical source, and it's
usually they have their own generator, and they bring the light, the electricity through the site. But they have a procedure. What they say is that the procedure was followed. I don't know much more about that, but the poor guy is in a bad situation.
Yeah, because everybody's, of course, he's under scrutiny. Everybody's looking at it. The fire seems to have started in the eaves underneath the roof.
I prefer this version than the other one, that it would be a terrorist attack.
Yeah. At this point in time, it does look like it's accidental. And it's also, we should point out, not the first time that a fire hits a cathedral, not the first time a fire hits a cathedral during a renovation. In 1972, Nantes Cathedral, which had already endured an Allied bombing during World War II, saw its roof gutted. And again, it was the same thing. It was during a renovation that it had happened. And Didier Rickner.
Yes.
We're always looking to blame someone in this case.
There's a problem, Maybe if the rules were respected, it's possible. But when you work on a historical monument, or when you build any building, it's the same rules. You have no more rules, no more security on an historical monument. It is the real point. I have written many articles about this, because there are many fires in historical monuments. Do you remember the Hotel Lambert in Paris, not far from Notre-Dame? It was 5 years ago, and there was no rules more strict that there would be on any building. So I asked for more rules, but I was never heard. And now we have this.
So
kind
what
of
could be the stricter rules that you could enforce?
For example, you don't have obligations to have thermic cameras everywhere to be sure there's not a point of fire. You don't have obligations to have very often people who walk all the work site to look at it.
Watchmen,
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have obligations to park in a secure part all the inflammable liquids. You have many things which are, when you have a rule, it's only about people, security about people. It's nice, it's okay, but not about specific historical monument. So this kind of thing happens very often. Very many historical monuments were on fire in France, and 90% of them it was because of works.
Well, why should it be more strict for historical monument than for any place else?
Sorry?
Why should it be more strict for a historical monument?
It should be more strict on historical monument because when you have a fire,
we have so many rules.
Yes, sure. But when you have a fire on an historical monument, it's not the same as on any building. Because you are building something, it's destroyed by fire. It's a problem, but you have not lost your history. Here we have lost our history.
Marc Mimran, should the rules be stricter when you have?
We have so many rules, and they respect. I think what I've heard about that they left the site and they have to leave the site 2 hours before, and they have a strict following rules. I don't know exactly what happened, but they have so many rules.
Not enough. And when I tell we should have more thermic cameras or detector of smoke, it's not so expensive, and it must be done. It must be done on historical monuments.
Is it possible that at Notre-Dame they didn't have adequate sprinkler systems, that they didn't have enough smoke alarms?
They have security people that follow, and they had a security alarm. If I hear that before,
Well, they thought it was a false alarm. It went off around 6:30 p.m.
Exactly. So
and then
it worked.
Yeah,
they had the alarm.
So you should ask why the people didn't see, because had he the good instrument with him? Was he formed to this? I don't know. I don't tell he was not. But 30 minutes before, he came to see whether there is a fire, and there is no fire. Yes, there was a fire. 1.5 hour later, there was this.
Elisabeth Ovina, your thoughts on what should be done, what can be done to prevent, especially during renovation work on a structure like this one?
I don't know. I don't think you can avoid any risk. This famous zero risk doesn't exist. I hope we can take now measures to save monuments as much as we can. Honestly, I don't know. Let's wait to see what the investigation shows and tells.
Roxane Nandy?
Yes, the same. I think we need to wait for the report, the police report, in order to have more information. We can't avoid any risk. I think it's not possible. But, now I think we just have to thank very much, the firefighters who are very brave, and we can be happy because the structure is, still good in a good form. So I think that's the more important.
Let's talk about that. The structure, first of all, the firefighters, they did establish this wall between the two bell towers and the fire. The strategy for putting it out seems to have been effective.
I think they did a fantastic job. If you can imagine that it's a matter of half an hour. If the fire was so strong because of the wood, the quantity of wood is about 2,000 square cubic meters. So it's a lot of wood, and they did a great job because they put the water not only on the fire but all around, so that the temperature will go down. Because when the temperature goes high, it gives a lot of strength and strain on the stone,
Yeah, let's call up, if we can, a map of the church, a diagram. There we see it, and we see there in that map, courtesy of the New York Times, where the fire began. Marc Mibran, when you look at that, you're saying that they put, you were saying a wall of water, rather, around the blaze.
To reduce the temperature, which is very important for the stone, because it's not only the fire, but after that the structure could have fallen down.
There is one issue, though, remaining. Rescuers say they have the concern over, it was the fact that it was the roof that was holding the gables together.
Yeah.
To avoid further weakening, they're taking statues down at this point in time. Does it look like it's going to be okay?
It sounds great. It sounds much better than we thought at the very beginning. So the Spire did the worst job, because the Spire gets through the vault and destroy when during the fire. The Spire was made out of wood also. Huh? It
had a lead exterior, but it was wood on the inside.
Wood on the inside, so it burned and it fall down through the vault and destroyed the stone, because you have the cover, you have the wood, and then you have the stone. So the stone was in a way protecting from the fire.
All right. So as we were saying just a moment ago, as Roxane was pointing out, a great job by the Paris Fire Department. Let's look ahead now. With Paris set to host the Olympics in 2024, France's president setting a deadline for completing the renovation.
We as a people are builders, and we have a lot to rebuild. So yes, we will rebuild the Notre-Dame Cathedral to be even more beautiful than before. And I want this completed within 5 years. We can do it. We will take action.
Nous mobiliserons.
Eric, I see you shaking your head.
Yes, I'm mad about my president, because you seem to look at a small child. I will do this. You can't do this, because you have time to investigate, you have time to study, and you have time to build. And I don't know how long it will be. I cannot tell it. But every people I talked about, specialists tell about 10, 15 years max. But we can tell. It must be quick. We can tell this. We cannot tell it will be done in 5 years. Why? Because of the Olympics. What is the link between Olympics and the cathedral?
There's no link, I think. But we can imagine that, we are in a great situation. We have a lot of hope now. So we are trying to make it and push it. It says 5 years, even if it's 6 or 4 or 7, we will see. But the fact is that in 5 years, he didn't say, I don't know what he's expecting, but it will not finish in 5 years. But maybe it can be finished from the outside and the roof, and that's it.
Because you were saying taking too long to make the decision, that could be bad.
Exactly. So we have to go ahead now.
Roxane Lindy?
Yes, I think the Olympics can't be the priority.
No, there's no Olympics.
They said that they wanted.
He didn't say that.
In fairness, he didn't say it.
He didn't built for the
No,
Olympics.
he didn't say that.
Yes, but
no,
Anne Hidalgo told this.
But
the mayor of Paris.
And a few years afterwards, because maybe he was ashamed to tell this.
Yeah.
He didn't say it.
No, the president, of course, didn't say it, but we understand that the deadline was meant to respect the Olympics. And I think the priority must not be that. The priority must be to allow, our laborers to express their talents, and the people, the French people, just to think collectively to what they want for the new cathedral. Just because I think that a lot of French citizens were really shocked by the pictures. It's a real drama for a lot of people, and I think it's important to rebuild unity also of the people with this project, and I think that's the most important.
The remarks by Roxane Lundy and Elisabeth Auvinac again touches to the heart of the matter here, that this is much more than a place of worship. It belongs to all of France, and so
it's both a monument, and it's a place to worship. But I was wondering, technically, is it possible to rebuild fast? What's the main problem? Is to agree on what we want, or to actually build?
You have to think before. They don't think. They decide, I'm going to do this in 5 years, we are going to build a new Spire.
But they will, it's a UNESCO, it's protected by UNESCO.
Yes,
you cannot just do
Professor, who is the leader of UNESCO is Mrs. Azoulay. She was Ministry of Culture here. And she diminished the money.
You're going a bit fast now, accusing before, the debate will start and there'll be tons of discussions and hours of negotiation.
You must think before do anything.
Oh, sure.
And there are rules, and there are people who know. And I have phones.
You know that we cannot do it. Why do you say no before we start? You say,
I am receiving phone calls from every place in France, from curators, historical monuments, people who work at the Ministry of Culture. They are devastated. They're devastated because of the fire and because of what is decided now.
Nothing is decided. They say go ahead, and we're going to make it. In 5 years, we're going to make the roof, and that's it. What's the matter with that?
So how much time do we need for reflection then? Before
500 years.
No, 2 years. 1 to 2 years.
It's okay. The church has
investigation and reflection.
So the church thinks in centuries.
Yeah,
not in any rush.
I think that's
from the religious point of view.
Mr. Mimram is a great architect. I can tell it because I think it. But he's an architect from now. He's building new things. He's not a heritage architect. It's very different,
You can say what you want. I mean, I don't care very much. I say that we are in the past. Why should we fight about that? Yeah. It's the moment of unity.
No.
Everybody is understood the place of this church, which is not only a church, which is a church, obviously, but it's a place for all the French people. We are all together around this, and that's the main point. Don't begin the debate now.
All right, we're going to come back in a moment and look at the other big choices, not just how fast you go, but with what money and what you do in rebuilding Notre-Dame. The conversation's already begun in this country. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate, and after the shock of Monday's devastating fire at Notre-Dame Cathedral, the question is, how do you rebuild? With what means? With who? We're talking about it with Elisabeth Auvillain, correspondent for the National Catholic Reporter, Didier Rickner, editor of La Tribune de l'Art, the Art Tribune, with us as well, architect Marc Mimran, and Roxane Lundy, who's candidate for the European elections for the Génération Party, and who hails from a city which has its own beautiful cathedral, Beauvais, north of Paris.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Welcome back to the show. We are wondering about what to do next with Notre-Dame. One of the questions is, do you try to make it the exact replica of what it was before? Let's take a look with Selena Sykes.
The face of Paris changed overnight. Notre-Dame's iconic spire toppled and its entire roof caved in. It's the most extensive damage in the cathedral's 856-year history. But there's a glimmer of hope from inside, a reflection of its famous rose windows seen in a puddle of water, the aftermath of a frantic 15-hour operation by firefighters to save the cherished landmark. Scaffolding in place for renovation works remains in place, above a gaping hole where the Gothic building's high-vaulted ceiling and roof once stood. Below, the pews appear largely intact, the floor covered in black ashes, which is all that remains of the cathedral's medieval wooden structure that held up the roof.
The wooden structure dates back to the 12th and 13th centuries. It's nicknamed the forest because so much wood was used, it amounts to an entire forest.
Recreating the lattice work will be one of the Reconstruction project's greatest challenges. French President Emmanuel Macron said he wants Notre-Dame rebuilt in 5 years, but many experts have predicted it could take decades longer.
Decades longer. A word about the first of all, the materials. 21 hectares of wood to build the original roof. That's 52 acres if you count in acres. Where are you going to find all that oak?
I think we can find it. We have with the possibility to find it. The thing is that we won't find it dry, so we will have to wait until it be dry. But the question is, should we rebuild that made out of oak? Maybe it could, the cathedral in Reims has been made of concrete. The cathedral in Nantes has been rebuilt in steel, if I don't make a mistake. So nobody can say that it is absolutely necessary to make it out of oak.
What's your religion on the materials, if you will?
I'm no architect, really. I think now modern technology allows new possibilities, and let's talk about it and see. I leave that to the specialists.
Leave it to the specialists. Elisabeth Tauvillain, when you look at this effort that now has to be undertaken to rebuild this structure, when I was looking at that report, I was thinking, this is a cathedral that was turned into a warehouse during the French Revolution, but it wasn't bombed during World War II. And what does it tell you, the fact that now there's this fire?
Well, it's a shock. It's a very sad event, but that's okay. It happened. Now, what do we do with it? Let's go on and try to rebuild it in the most beautiful way, using the best techniques, the best material. But it doesn't. I'm not sure it touches the soul of Notre-Dame. Religion is not made of wood.
Do you agree with that, Didier Regnault?
I agree with what was said. It must be a decision of specialists to decide how this charpente, I don't remember the name, is going to be built. And I am very stunned that Emmanuel Macron has not told yet how we should do. It's strange, but we must take time.
He does micromanage, is what you're saying.
We must wait. There are people who know in France who must talk and decide what is the best way to do, and we must wait.
All right. You accept the idea that it won't be made out of oak?
No, it could be made of oak or not. I'm not sure it's the good solution. I agree with your position.
Thank you.
The hours after the fire, the president had already talked about Emmanuel Macron getting involved. He'd already launched a nationwide fund drive. And we were talking before the break about how there's been this moment of unity, not just in Paris. Sometimes, there's a bit of friction between Paris and the rest of the country here in France. But the call has been heard elsewhere by many, not all, like, for instance, on the French Riviera.
It's great because it's really a symbol for us.
It's normal to take part. It's our national heritage.
Usually there never seems to be enough money for anything, so it's a bit surprising.
You have to see what they're going to do with the money, if anything will be set aside as a result.
Yes, a lot of suspicion about the money because we're hearing about these big pledges. The latest, there's this Thursday, the International Olympic Committee. It's announced a €500,000 donation. Disney says it's going to commit money. France's rival luxury goods moguls have entered into a bidding war, it seems. Kering's François Pinault pledging 100 million. Louis Vuitton's Bernard Arnault, 200 million to do him one better. The Abbé Pierre Foundation, named after the beloved French priest who advocated affordable housing for all, tweeting this: 400 million for Notre-Dame. Thank you, Kering Group, Total, LVMH for your generosity. We're very fond of the place where Abbé Pierre's funeral was held, but we're also very committed to his fight. If you could agree to 1% for the needy, we would be delighted. Roxane Lundy, your thoughts on these calls for pledges and these philanthropists coming forth with big donations?
Yeah, of course, we need to rebuild Notre-Dame de Paris because, of course, it's a spirit. It's also part of our national heritage, and we need money to do so. And, of course, the president asked to philanthropists to participate in the reconstruction of the building. And that's a good news, I think. But I have to say that, to me, personally, the spirit of Notre-Dame de Paris, it's also Victor Hugo, for Notre-Dame de Paris, it's his masterpiece. And it's also about solidarity, and I think it's very important because a lot of the people that are paying for the reconstruction of Notre-Dame de Paris, they don't pay tax. For instance, Pinault said that he would give 100 million euros in the reconstruction. So that's very generous. But
he gets a tax break as a result.
At the same time, his company, made a very important tax evasion in France. So that's an issue, very thorny issue, because the national heritage, it's not only about the glamorous. And even if I'm very concerned by the situation of Notre-Dame de Paris, and I think it's very important to rebuild hope and to rebuild it, I think also that we need to pay for hospitals, for schools, and of course, for La Fondation Abbé Pierre and for the people that are the poorest and who also need money. We need money for all that.
We've been getting lots of reactions on this subject of the money on the hashtag F24 debate. One viewer saying, given millions of people come to Paris to see Notre-Dame, it's a wise investment from a purely secular monetary view. Given the historical significance, it's a wise investment in national identity in France's history. That's one opinion. Another person, though, saying, well, the burning of Notre-Dame, is that another narrative to overshadow the concerns of the Yellow Vest movement and the French people as a whole? Yes, there is this context of the Yellow Vests, and so we've gotten into this discussion of is this about where the tax breaks for those who do contribute to charity. We've seen a lot of these remarks that have been coming up. And Elisabeth Aufilin, it must be said, when Notre-Dame was built, at the same time, across the street, they built a hospital, l'Hôtel Dieu. And
of course, we need money for hospitals too, and certainly a lot of money for hospitals. But I'll remind you one thing. Notre-Dame is a very beautiful place with a free entry. The Church of France always objected to having people pay to visit the cathedral. That's not the case in a place like Seville. You have to pay to get into the cathedral. The French Church has always said this is a place where anybody can come and worship or not worship or see the treasures, but they don't have to pay 1 cent, which is the first thing. Then it's not only rich people who go and see Notre-Dame. So that's why it is the church for everybody. So it should be rebuilt. But of course, this shouldn't be taken out of money for hospitals. We all agree. But it's a place for everybody, not just for rich art connoisseurs. It's for the people as well as for any visitor.
Just explain for our audience, for people watching us from around the world, France is this funny place, right? Where these are churches, Catholic churches, and yet they're owned by the building itself is owned by the state, by the Republic.
Well, they've been there for centuries. No church can have enough money to maintain these monuments. So the state now takes care of that,
because during the French Revolution, it occurs you that all the goods of the church were taken by state. So now in France, it's not like in Italy. In Italy, it's not the same. But the church in France is poor because they have no more what was taken at the Revolution. So somebody must pay for this stuff. So in 1905, there was a law, separation of church and state, and it was decided that churches belong to cities and cathedrals to state. So it's normal. You are an owner. You must pay for what you own, and you must take the works at your charge.
Marc Mimran, your thoughts on this question of how you pay for the renovation, the reconstruction?
It's a moment where we are looking for generosity, and those people, they are giving a lot of money. One you give 100 million, the other one gives 200 million. I hope that there is a third one that will give 300 million. I mean, what is the point with that? It's okay. About the tax. I've heard your point, but if I do remember well, he said that he doesn't want to have the tax back. So I think it's the position of the state is always that the state has to rebuild it.
Well, in this case, what's causing the controversy is not tax evasion as such, but tax breaks. Tax breaks for those who contribute to this fund above what's the normal tax break for charity.
It's about a 66%, if I do understand well. So
60 for companies. 60.
60 for the companies and 66 for the individual and 75 if you in another case. But it means that when you give one, the state will give two. It means that it's a movement where the state is paying for a large part of it, but it's the law.
Yeah, but that's interesting because you said the state is paying, and I really think that we need to rebuild Notre-Dame de Paris. So I'm not polemical on this, but I just want to say that everybody is saying thank you very much to the firefighters for what they did, but we also need to talk about for instance, their working conditions, also about the working conditions of teachers, of nurses, of policemen, policewomen, etc. And I think it's also linked because today, currently, they are the first victims of austerity policies. So I think it's also important to talk about solidarity, to talk about state and working conditions, because we need to pay, of course, for rebuilding this amazing building, Notre-Dame de Paris, but also to pay for, I think, public servants.
What is the link? I don't understand.
The link is that
if the guy gave 100 million for that, you mean he should have given 100 million?
I think he should have to pay his taxes. That's all.
Obviously, if he doesn't pay his taxes, he should be in jail. He's not in jail.
Pinot was concerned by tax evasion, so I think that's an issue.
Evasion, avoidance. It's a whole big debate.
And clearly, it's 2 billion.
In his case,
group caring has realized very important tax evasion in France. That's all.
The question is, we were talking about it earlier, what materials you use. Also, how do you rebuild? Most notably, that spire that came down. The Prime Minister, Wednesday, launching a worldwide contest to rebuild that 19th century spire that was destroyed in the fire.
Un concours international d'architecture. An international architecture contest to reconstruct the cathedral's spire will be organised. De la cathédrale. The competition will allow us to ask the question of whether we should even recreate the spire, or if we should provide Notre-Dame with a new spire, adapted to the techniques and challenges of our times.
A spire of a cathedral adapted to the problem of our time. I would like to know what is the problematic of our time, which needs to be taken in account to build the spire of a cathedral. How can you tell such? It's incredible to hear this. And he told, he said, this spire is not original. It's not original. It's an original by Viollet-le-Duc, who is one of the greatest architects of the 19th centuries, who is studied by all architectural historians, who have had exhibitions. How can you tell Viollet-le-Duc is nothing? It's incredible.
All right, Elisabeth Vidal, should there be a spire, first of all? Should there?
Honestly, I don't know. Maybe the best, when I see a project, I will say, oh, this looks nice, and this doesn't. Honestly, I don't know. I met a man yesterday who said to me, oh, the spire is so important because it's a direct link to God. I said, oh, really? I mean, okay, if he sees it that way, I don't think.
France has signed the Venice Charter, which, when you read it, you must rebuild this. It is an international charter signed by France. Can we keep our word or not?
I think the great-grandfather of Mr. Ryder was against the spider, because when Viollet-le-Duc put the spider on the cathedral, everybody was against it because he had a small spider before, and
it's not an argument you should use, because I said I like very much your bridge you built. So I am against everything. It's a silly argument. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Viollet-le-Duc. Viollet-le-Duc is for me one of the most important architects of the 19th century. He's a major. Not only a builder, but he's a thinker, and he was developing the new way of thinking, the rationality of structural means in the architecture of the 19th century. He's a great architect, but everybody was against him when he built the spire, and now we say it's impossible to change it. I really don't understand the point.
So what would you like to see?
I would like to see if we can do it in a new way which respects Viollet-le-Duc, following Viollet-le-Duc, making better in a sense of contemporaneity than it was before. So it's open. I think the competition should be done in two moments. One, the competition for the new Spire, and then we will see. You have that, and you have that. You have Viollet-le-Duc. If Viollet-le-Duc is better, let it build.
Are you ready to look into the camera, Marc Mimon, and announce your candidacy for building this?
We'll see.
We'll see. One question, though, because we've talked about politics, we've talked about religion. There's also quite a bit of politics when it comes to architecture, I've noticed, when researching this. When it comes to big projects, we see familiar names that always pop up for the general public. People like Frank Gehry, who designed the Cinémathèque, and more recently the Louis Vuitton Foundation Museum, which...
No, this is Jean Nouvel.
It's the Louis Vuitton, isn't it?
No, this is Jean Nouvel in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. That's
Louis Vuitton. That's Louis Vuitton. Jean Nouvel, his name's on a lot of structures, like the recently inaugurated Louvre in Abu Dhabi. At the end of the day, Marc Mimon, honestly, is it the best architect that gets the contract, or is it the one that's the most politically connected?
I hope... I cannot say.
What's your experience?
My experience is I won a lot of competition without being politically connected, so I cannot say the contrary. You can win a competition. I was 35 when I won the competition for the new bridge in Paris, so it was possible, and it's still possible. I hope so.
All right. It's still possible. Didier Rickner, this is going to come down, the decision will come down, to the Culture Ministry?
No, the Culture Ministry, it doesn't exist. I have not seen him since 3 days. It's, I think, Emmanuel Macron, Edouard Philippe, they decide. I don't know. There are rules against. We talked about Pinot, Arnaud, and they should pay their taxes. They pay their taxes, I think. There's laws. They don't break the law. You are willing, because of this Spire, there is international laws. The Venice Charter, we signed it. There is no debate.
Your thoughts on the process that lies ahead, Roxane Lundy?
Oh, I'm not a specialist. I just think that I'd like to see as many people as possible to be happy with the results of the reconstruction of Notre-Dame de Paris. And I think we need a lot of hope right now, so I hope that...
And what about, just for this competition, excuse me for asking, because we've just seen, there was a poll done for the next coach of France's rugby team, and the clubs rejected getting a foreign coach in. Your idea that it's open to people from around the world, the competition?
Yes, I think it should be open to all the people all around the world, because, France is open on the world. I don't think that we need to be French in order to have a very specific and beautiful idea for the reconstruction of Notre-Dame de Paris. So I just want beautiful ideas. That's the most important.
On that point, I should say that we are open to all the world of architecture. The only thing I would say is I would be happy if it was also reverse. If the French
it's not always the case abroad.
Which is not the case even in England or in the United States.
Marc Mimon, I want to thank you. I want to thank as well Elisabeth Ovien, Didier Rickner, and Roxane Lundy. Stay with us. Media Watch is next. And we say hello to James Creedon.
Hi, Francois. So there is a certain amount of debate online as well about the designs or proposed concours, or competition rather, to design a spire for Notre-Dame. And this was Edouard Philippe, the Prime Minister, announcing that there would be an international architecture competition. And it did lead very quickly to proposals coming in online. And I think this is actually a serious proposal. It's a very modernist take on things. I'm not sure it'll please everybody. And it did lead then to remarks such as this, which is, I think, satirical. Restoration of Notre-Dame should be mindful of its past while revealing its unique potential as an urban, mixed-use development. Here at Pick, Rogarth and Bomsnatch, we believe, etc., etc. And you can see this absolutely hideous sort of rendering of Notre-Dame into a kind of mall, basically. Other comments are just going completely towards satire. You see this image here of a Moet sort of champagne bottle on top of Notre-Dame, and it actually led to a hashtag being used as well, une flèche pour Notre-Dame, a spire for Notre-Dame. So people are sort of being a little bit silly, perhaps, but maybe there's a message behind that as well. Let's no longer take any risks. But very, very quickly it became political. It's amazing how people were so desperately sad, and now it's gone towards humour again.
Well, welcome to France.
Well, there you go. Yes, indeed. This is one sort of political proposal where there's a sort of a yellow touch to this one here. I think a reference to the Gilets jaunes. So I suppose if President Macron was perhaps taking a pause from the politics this week just to focus on this issue of heritage, that pause might not last very long. And indeed, there were some on social media likening what happened to somebody who had an exam to do and the fire alarm went off, literally, and you get to avoid the exam. And I suppose it's easy to forget that 8 p.m. Monday was meant to be one of the most important political speeches.
Those announcements answering the Yellow Vest movement.
That's right. And so a lot of talk about that. But for now, if you look at his social media and how he's communicating, the focus is still very much, and I think very much fairly so, on the aftermath of the fire. And there was a ceremony today at the Elysée for of the 400 or so firemen and women who saved Notre-Dame from total destruction. So it's understandable, I suppose, that everything else has been pushed back for now. But a lot of talk of unity around the time of his speech on Tuesday. This is a moment that will unite us, and others reacting to his comments on Tuesday saying, blah, 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 everybody out on Saturday to block the roads, roundabouts, etc., etc. So if perhaps there's hope from the point of view of the political people around Emmanuel Macron that this could be a moment to unite the country, perhaps not entirely. We'll have to wait and see. But the speech that he was due to deliver on Monday has since leaked, and it has led to quite a lot of reactions from political opponents. And as you would expect, political opponents were quick to criticise the measures. This is the head of the Socialist Party, Olivier Faure, saying he was promising he would make huge changes, knock over the table, I suppose, symbolically, but actually it's just a little stool that has been turned over. Essentially, the criticism is that a lot of the measures taken are symbolic, such as doing away with the elite training school for senior civil servants, ENA, the École Nationale d'Administration, and that it's not the profound, deep changes that many feel would be necessary to appease the Gilets jaunes. So we'll have to wait and see when that speech is officially delivered and whether it will be adapted now in light of what happened.
It's just a pause, and of course he's going to have to give that speech at some point.
Right.
And we are at the outset of a campaign season, as Roxane here knows, for those European elections. Many thanks, James.
Thanks,
Green.
François.
I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.